examining leadership and management within the workplace. Topics covered will include designated leadership versus emergent leadership and managing entry level versus mid level employees.
I was previously a loan administration manager one within document management here.
So you have to do a lot of babysitting?
It's not necessarily the word I would use for it, but yes, there's a lot of walking somebody through the process and through a day, and a lot of HR calls that went along with that.
Okay. So in your role as a loan administration manager, you had to do a lot of administrative tasks and walking employees through their daily responsibilities.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So basically what you did not like about that specific management role was the administrative task?
Yeah, I would be willing to say that that was kind of what it came down to. There was, like I said, a lot of paperwork, a lot of HR calls, just a lot of different calls and things that you had to deal with that you otherwise wouldn't have to.
So was it the amount of administrative tasks such as HR calls that took you away from your work? Was it the amount of time that you were spending on these tasks that you did not like?
Yeah, a lot of it was the amount of time that had to be spent on those calls. A lot of it was just my overall mental state as well, having to worry about somebody else's issues that come up and having to handle those, whether it's through HR or just through the conversation with that person. Like I said, it just kind of drained on me throughout that year as well.
So your mental state was, you were basically drained,
Right.
exhausted,
Yeah, emotionally, if you will.
emotionally
Yeah.
exhausted. Compared to your current role now, would you describe yourself as emotionally exhausted?
Compared to how I am now?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Um, there was a lot more emotions, empathy that had to go along with the manager role as well. You don't have a lot of that in this current position.
Okay. So in my class, we're discussing things such as an emergent leader versus a designated leader. So designated leader is someone who has that management title, that title of manager. And an emergent leader is someone who does not have that manager title, but they're still seen as a leader on their team. People
Right.
go to them. Perhaps they're the subject matter expert, or they know a lot of stuff.
Right.
So they're looked at as a leader. Would you describe yourself as an emergent leader right now?
Yeah, I guess I would say so in that context. I've, yeah, I would describe myself in that way.
Okay.
For me, I just try to lead by example more than anything. Just doing the right thing when an opportunity comes up. If there's a risk, raising your hand. Just stepping up when an opportunity comes up. Like I said, that's generally how I try to lead, is just through
It's
example.
more of a team lead role than a really manager. You're more of the frontline first response team for any issues that may arise or any complaints people may have. They'll first come to you. Outside of Wells Fargo, I've led various kind of supervisor type of roles. Probably the most critical one I had was working for an architectural firm that I had and was managing somebody who oversaw all of our printing. Managing, I guess, individual contributor role probably is more managing documentation instead of people. That's not always the case. A lot of times the projects I have currently, as initiatives consultant, individual contributor role, you still have to manage people. You still need their response for, closing out any project documentation that you need, getting approvals. There's still a lot of communication and reliance on people outside of yourself, even though you are an individual contributor. As we're with kind of a leadership role or actually managing people, it's different. You're maybe not looking, you're more relying on people, and you're probably the one that more people are relying on to, resolve day-to-day issues.
Okay, so why did you leave your management role to work as an individual contributor?
I left, honestly, because I got a little burnt out. I had anywhere from 25 to 40 team members at one time. It got to the point where I didn't even know, I wouldn't have time to meet with them because they would work different shifts, so you would have different shifts going on. I also just wanted to learn more. There's only so much I believe you can learn as being a manager. You're kind of restricted to, an operational manager, you're restricted to just learning your line of business. I wanted to learn more about some of the process improvement.
I do know there's a difference between managing entry-level contributors versus managing higher-level contributors. So your entry-level would be your collectors, your home preservation specialists.
Yep.
Your higher level would probably be technical writers, implementation associates, or even business initiative consultants. So in the future, do you see yourself managing higher level contributors versus lower level contributors?
Yeah, that's what I meant kind of when I would get back into, I have no issue getting back into management, leadership role, but I would want something where I have not only a smaller team, but also have more higher level team members who you possibly don't have the same issues and complaints that you do when you're maybe dealing with people that is their first job, say out of college, or first job working in an office setting. We had some very interesting complaints and scenarios come up when you're a frontline manager compared to, I believe a lot of that's resolved when you get into the higher level, although I know it doesn't typically always go away. You're still going to have some issues here and there with certain team members.
So since you had such a large team, between 25 and 40, do you think that prevented you from having a lot of face-to-face contact with each one of them?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, some of them had different shifts. I would see them for about an hour a day, or our shifts would overlap for an hour, so that was pretty much to allow me for an hour to talk to them. And we had a lot of turnover at that time too, so there would be people that would work for a month, they'd leave, a new class would come in, it'd be another month, then those people would leave. So it was a continuous flow of new people and people leaving. So it's a lot of turnover.
How did you feel when you
those days, I think.
finally got to go home at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, of course you're drained. I also feel like you weren't able, like you said earlier, not able to really have that face-to-face time with some people. So you kind of feel like you're leaving some people out. You may not have a fair, you might not have a good balance of the people that you were able to talk with and have a conversation with and coach them on things to the other people that maybe may have a different shift or maybe are just a good processor. And you don't have any control over discussing with them because they're a processor, so they're doing what they need to do. Your time is spent on the people that are having issues with either their quality or their production numbers of not producing enough of what they should. So again, I think it's back to you not really having enough time to spend with the people that probably could really use coaching. You're just correcting issue after issue with people that that seem to basically just have the same issues over again. Again, that's a coaching thing. When you have 40 people, one person can't coach or really lead 40 people with what's expected of, I think, managers. I think anybody can just manage people. I mean, like you said earlier, it's kind of just making sure that they're doing something right and that they're not making any mistakes, or if they are making mistakes, you correct it. I think leading is different in that fact that you you're helping them move forward. They're not just that number, that, you know, like a widget. They're actually a person, and you're helping them by coaching and, you know, whatever else it may be that maybe they want to move up to the, you know, to the next step. Maybe they don't. Maybe they actually just enjoy and they just kind of want to come in and you know, just basically just do their work for 8 hours a day. So yeah, I
Was
think
the
there's a
loan
big difference between the two.
administration manager 1
Okay.
was my title.
All right. And what did that role involve? Like, what did you do as a loan administration manager?
Sure. It was kind of a unique situation. Well, I don't know how unique, but especially for Wells Fargo, that it was within the same department that I started out as a contract worker, then was a processor, then became a work director, then became a manager. And so I basically oversaw people that were doing the job I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually say that that was one benefit of it,
Mm-hmm.
was that I was an expert at it. So if somebody had a question, it was kind of like built-in credibility, if you know what I mean. So versus going into a leadership role without having been in that department, and people are going to come to you for questions, and you have to be honest and say, actually, I don't know. And so I think I'm glad that I didn't have to be put in that situation, because I feel like your leader should be sort of an expert or know how to direct you. And so
Mm-hmm.
so that was a good thing. But yeah, my day-to-day role was basically making sure that, since we're in a production environment, making sure people were logged into their correct production activity. And then anytime they were deviating from their schedule, I essentially had to step in and correct it. And, you know, it wouldn't be automatically like, why aren't you in production? But
Mm-hmm.
some days it really felt like that. And so that sort of takes a toll on the human aspect of things, because we were also in a period of sustained mandatory overtime.
Yeah.
So the team members that I was leading were working a minimum of 40 or 50 hours a week. And I wasn't working that much because I'm salary, and for personal reasons, it's really hard for me to work outside of the 8.5 hours. And so that was another reason why I decided to leave that role, is because I felt like I was expecting things that I wasn't doing myself, and I didn't think that was fair to them. Other reasons would be my leadership style wasn't like anybody else's that I saw in my department. I constantly got told that I was like the engagement person, so like the happy clappy type person. And because not saying that my peers didn't genuinely care about the people on their team, but they were able to sort of separate a lot easier, like, okay, I'm your boss, not your friend. Whereas for me, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's your friend, it's just, I felt like I would never give up on somebody, and so I always felt like there was more we could do. But in this type of environment, if a person is costing too much, you essentially just have to cut them. And that took an emotional toll on me, like knowing their background stories and their one-on-ones, you know, telling me, okay, this is going on in my life. And I've been in periods of my life where really tough stuff is going on, and your work sometimes does slip, and having to make those tough choices of, well, at the end of the day, you're not doing your job, I'm gonna have to let you go, which for me, killed me. And I literally would take that home, and I would be upset that, okay, just essentially, you know what I mean? And they have to learn that for themselves, and it's their own choices. I mean, given that I had personal things going on, I was still able to succeed. I know that you're able to, but at the same time, I just felt, I don't know, a lot of guilt about it. So, and then also on top of that, I was really engaged. So Green Team is one thing that I'm very passionate about. I was also doing Toastmasters. And the exciting thing about that was a lot of people on my team became more engaged. So the Green Team essentially became, at the site at least, 50% of it were people from my line of business and core, or correspondent. And so that told me a lot of leading by example, because so many people, and then same with Toastmasters. We just opened a new chapter at the site. It was completely non-existent. And then the only representation from my entire department downstairs was me and then 2 of my team members. And those are the times when I felt like I'm doing something right and leading by example. But I felt like none of that was recognized by my management or leaders that were, and in fact, I felt a lot of pressure sometimes of, and this is an exact quote I got at one point of, I wish you could be as passionate about your team as you are the green team, because none of the green team stuff goes on your MPP. And I kind of thought, well, that's a shame, because part of my MPP should be my own personal development, and within the green team, I'm learning a wealth of things. And so that was sort of the constant pressure of focus on your team, quit doing the happy clappy stuff. But I was the only one doing that. And so my fear was that we're gonna kill everybody's morale. They're already pretty low morale as it is with the mandatory overtime. And then I guess I would say the last straw was the community support campaign. I would get hourly, at one point it was almost hourly, reminders from our senior leadership of, hey, you have this many people that haven't signed on yet to look at the pledging and decide whether they want to or not. What are you going to do to make sure everybody signs on? We need 100%. And I just felt like that's not what the community support campaign is about at all. And it's their own choice if they want to go on the site. I'm not going to sit there and force somebody to do it, but that's what they expected me to do. And that's not the only time that I felt pressure to do something that I didn't necessarily agree with. But not like anything's immoral, not anything close to what was going on with the other Wells Fargo's with the opening accounts and all that stuff. But I mean, I maybe it was because that was going on at the same time, but I can definitely understand that pressure of, you need to do this. And it's like, well, I don't think that's necessarily right. If you want to give, like, I know what they got paid because I used to be a processor, and sometimes I was living paycheck to paycheck. I don't blame them if they don't have an extra $5 a paycheck to put into this community support campaign, but that was seen as, from my senior leadership, as a failure on my part to not have everybody giving money. And so I just felt like they were kind of disconnected from the reality of it. So, especially because you're forcing people to do mandatory overtime. And it's like, hey, so while you're working your, butt off, like, by the way, can you give that money away? So I don't know, that was sort of the last straw. And I was just like, I would definitely consider going into leadership again, but just not in that department.
You mentioned that you were involved in the Green Team and Toastmasters, and those are two organizations that I'm currently involved in right now. And I can totally understand where you're coming from in regards to not having people support you in those activities that are helping in your own self-development. You're not necessarily doing those activities just for fun, but you are learning a lot from them, and they are making you a better person. So I totally understand you on that front. So do you think when you were a manager, did you have more freedom to do what you wanted to do, or do you think you had less freedom, or you were being more washed over so that you could?
That's such a good question, because it's kind of hard to answer. And other people have asked me that. My peers, now that I've left and kind of gone to the other side, are like, oh, what's it like over there? And I guess I don't feel like I have any less control over what I do in my daily work. And if anything, I feel like I have more time to work on the Green Team things, because a lot of leadership, and this, again, it was a production environment. Leadership in other areas could be very different than this, but in a production environment, you are spending so much of your time doing desk work behind the scenes, like tracking what is their quality score for the month, what is it weekly, what are the trends in their errors, or production wise, all these numbers constantly, like plugging them into reports just so you can answer to senior leaders essentially. And all that kind of mix, it's like they're forgetting about the people behind it. And I mean, we have really large teams. At one point I had 39 people on my team. And the expectation is to have at least one monthly one-on-one with all of your team members. And so you can do the math, that's at least one a day, or you know what I mean, if you spread it out. So it was just, I constantly felt like I never had enough time in the day. I know that I don't have a problem with my time management or my prioritizing skills. It was literally, the expectation was your salary, they're working overtime, you are going to be here more than 8.5 hours. And maybe I'm stubborn, but I didn't agree with that. I'm like, well, if you're truly setting me up for success, I should be able to do everything within my expectations within that time. I enjoy standing out for the right reasons, and even if that's, like I said, none of my peers were really happy, clappy type people. I did leadership training. Did you do like that disc style, like leadership foundations ever?
No.
So there's different personality types essentially, and D is dominance, I is intuition, I think, S is stability, and C is conscientiousness. And it was just kind of eye-opening to me because I was the only one in this class of like 30 people that was an S. And so the leader, the facilitator, said, well, you know, stability is not a typical trait that you would see in leadership, but we need more people that are S's. But you're not the type of people that typically go into leadership because of the how you describe the S person is can't we all get along type of a person, like just wanting everybody to be on the same page and kind of get along, obviously. And so it is hard to, and maybe that's why I was feeling the stress so much in that role. But I definitely still feel like a leader. I'm continuing on with the green team stuff. I'm now, since there was a site lead already at the new building that I moved to, I'm going to be a site lead for all the site leads. And so I'm hoping that with that outlet, I can kind of still be like a formal leader. But then just in my day-to-day, I try to lead by example. If I pass by somebody who has a pop bottle in the garbage can and I consider this leading, I will stop and just kind of be like, hey, I'm on the green team and I didn't know if you know this, but in every coffee kiosk, there's these blue bins that can go to recycling, and it's just one step. It makes a big difference if you just want to do one simple thing. I don't know, so I feel like I look for moments now where I can be a leader still. But I don't know where your procedure writing experience was, but at least in my new department, I mean, you're very isolated. You're in like your own little desk area. The walls are super high. I have a nice corner desk office, which I love because there's a huge window by it. But I mean, you have to go out of your way to socialize with people and talk to them and make those interactions, because otherwise I'm behind the desk. All my other peers that report to my manager are remote, so I'll probably never meet them in person. And so learning a lot about online and conference calls and how to not have awkward conference calls, because it's actually quite an interesting skill to, compared to this department as a leader, I mean, every meeting was physical. You pull people into a room, you're always face to face, and so there's a lot to be said about what you lose without the body language. So.
Right. So basically what I'm hearing is, although you are no longer in a manager role, you're still leading regardless of your title through your interactions with people, albeit through the green team or just through your interactions in general. You're still leading.
Yeah. Hopefully that continues. We'll see. It's sort of like I took away the micromanaging part or the manager part of the leadership role, and that gave me the good balance that I wanted. But we'll see. I've heard a lot of people who transitioned say that they got really bored after a while. Like they were so happy at first, like, oh, I have all this time to work on my own development. And then they kind of hit a wall like, okay, this is really boring. Enough of me, kind of a thing. So we'll see how it goes.
While management focuses on planning, organizing, and staffing, and it's concerned with creating order and stability, leadership is actually about how one acquires support from their followers, and it's all about adaptation and constructive change. What I found out is that both involve influencing a group of individuals and goal attainment.